Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Rabbi.
So it says over here in the Torah, Garasina Mepek Kama de Shabbat. Right? It says in Shabbat like this, Gemara Shabbat. Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Amarav Yefet Tarit Chalom. So it says over there that Rav says that what's a good thing for a dream? Tanit, to fast. So what does that mean? That if a person has a scary dream, right, fasting is a good thing to do. It's beneficial, to annul the evil decree if there is such a thing like that. Okay. Right. So I'm sorry. So it says like this, right? In the Torah, he brings the Gemara there, and the Gemara says, as we said, the fast is good for the scary dream. Kesh neoret, right? Just like fire is for neoret, right? Which is like some kind of a flax, whatever. Perush, the batelo. So what does that mean? That just like the fire burns the flax, right? So does the fast annul the bad dream. That's what he's trying to say. Perush levatelo. Amar Rabbi Chazda, Amar Chazda. So it says this rabbi, Ubo bayom. So he says, but the thing is, if you really want it to have the effect, you got to do the fast that day. In other words, the night after you had the dream. Yukach says, therefore, Yachol lit'anot afilu b'Shabbat. So he can fast even on Shabbat, ala halom, on the dream. Ala halom ra, a bad dream, right? So technically speaking, a person can even do this on Shabbat. If he had a bad dream Friday night, he can fast on Shabbat to annul the bad decree. Most people don't do it like this today, and we'll explain to you why that is. But let me just read on here. It's a little bit. So, ala chalom, shezeu ta'anug shelo levatel chalom ra. So he says this is like his pleasure, to nullify the bad dream. שחלם, וצריך להתענות יום אחד על שביטל עונג שבת. But he says then, what he has to do is also fast another day. Why is that? Because he fasted on Shabbat. He needs atonement for that too. Because you're not really supposed to fast on Shabbat. You're supposed to have oneg on Shabbat. You're supposed to have pleasure on Shabbat. Okay, good. So he says it's not really an obligation to do so. שיתענה יום ראשון של אחריו, to fast the day after. כתב בהאג, says this rabbi, שאומר עננו באלוהי נצור. He also says עננו, he says, right, in the last part of the Amidah. And כתב, אדוני ראש סל, says the Rosh, he says, אף על פי שקובע ברכה לעצמה, says even though in general, right, when we say anenu, it's like a blessing by itself. En lachush kevan shesiyem brachot o kolla beElohai netzor. There's no concern, right? Because he can finish, even if he finished all the blessings, he can still say in Elohai netzor. The anenu. So anenu is the prayer that we say, when you're fasting. That's what it is. So you can do it over there without without the seal for the blessing. Without sealing it. Okay, that's what it says in the Tur. Let's see in a bit Yosef. So he just brings a source, right? So he says this thing is going to be explained in chapter 288. Right. Why over there? Because they're talking about laws of Shabbat. So then he moves on. So you have to fast also another day because you fasted on Shabbat. Right? Where is this in Lamed Aleph Amud Bet in the Gemara? So there you go. That's that. A little bit more. So it says there that as we said, right? It's not really an obligation to fast. It's more like an optional thing, if you want to nullify it. That's what it says in the Mordechai, in the first parak of Shabbat. And also Ramagid. It'll be all explained again, right, in the laws of Shabbat there, which is 288. And also in this chapter, right, which is later on, in Orach Chaim, towards the end. Okay, so what else we got? Yeah, then it says Katav Bahag Sheomer Anenu beElokei Netzor. And then we talked about saying that in Anenu prayer, right? In Elokei Netzor. Katav Adonai Abiyorsal, the Rosh, right, what he wrote. So regarding that, it says with Yosef, Pek Enamnin, right? What's the source for this? Katut Tosfot, says in Tosfot, Lamed Aleph Amud Bet in the Gemara. So he said like this, right? That when he fasts for having a dream, Shabbat on Shabbat, Pirish Bahag Shomer Anenu beElokei Netzor. Right? The Bahag said you say Anenu in Elokei Netzor. He says even though it has a blessing by itself, this thing, but the thing is that since on Shabbat he's not saying Shmona Esrei, he's not saying 18 prayers, 18 blessings. So he says it seems like the Bahag is only talking about saying right Anenu Elokei Netzor. But Tosfot explains the Bekobea Bracha Le'atzmo Mareh. It's talking about the case where he says that's a blessing by itself. That's what it says, and also there. בפרק י' מלכות תפילה, laws of prayers. וזה לשון הראש, פרק אין עומדים, this is the language of the Rosh. In this parak, Pirish Bahag, that the Bahag explains Shomer Anenu beElokei Netzor. Again, right? It says Anenu Elokei Netzor. Ve'af al pi shekobea bracha le'atzmo. Even though it has a blessing by itself, this Anenu kevan she'eno betoch Yud brachot. But since we're not in the Amidah, Yud 18 and Shabbat and Nachush, we're not really concerned. Shema kol lo beElokei Netzor. or maybe he'll include it in Elokai Netzor. Grasina Birushalmi. So it says in Yerushalmi the Tfilat Shachar Rosh Chodesh Shechal Bo. So it says if you're praying Shachrit Rosh Chodesh that falls on Tanit, and there's a fast thing that comes out there. How do you mention the fast on Musaf? So Rabbi Zera says you do it on the Thanksgiving prayer, Thanksgiving blessing. Rabbi Abba Bar Mamal Amar Ba'avodah. This rabbi says you do it in the Avodah, which is the blessing before that. Rabbi Avina Amar Bracha Rabbi It. Rabbi Avina says you do it's a fourth blessing. He says you put it there. Rabbi Abba Amar. This rabbi says Mamatzinu. He says everything we find in the fourth blessing. Afkan berevit. He also says we do in the fourth blessing. So he said that's the way it came out, right? This conclusion there. That's the way they concluded. When ta'ut sofer Yerushalmi. So it seems like there's a mistake there in Yerushalmi. Tehachi eshli gross, because the real text should be like this. Rabbi Avina Amar Omra Baracha. This rabbi said he says it is a blessing, the Chamishit, the fifth blessing. Meaning what you say after the fourth blessing. Rabbi Abba Omer, and then he comes, this rabbi, and says, no, it should be the fourth blessing, right? Because we find always that everything is done like this in the fourth blessing. Afgan berevit, here also same thing. Komar she'omer kedushat ayom bebracha revit. So what does that mean? Since he mentions the holiday on in the fourth blessing, Afgan yomer kedushat ayom bebracha revit. Here also same thing, fourth blessing, right? Be'anenu yomar chamishit. And then Anenu says the next blessing, fifth blessing. U'b'shliach tzibur, it's talking about the Chazan, shekovea bracha le'atzmo, that he makes a blessing by itself when it comes to fast days. Just like he says every time, ben goel lerofe, right? Between these two blessings, right? Goel, which is the redemption, and rofe, which is the healing. But he says individual could be that he says it in Elokai Netzor. Shepiresh Bahag. Just like the Bahag said. So it says, if the halacha is like Rabbi Abba, Shamar Birushalmi, that it said in Yerushalmi, Shomer Anenu be'avodah, that he says, right, that you say Anenu in the Avodah, which is the fifth blessing. Yachol liot shegam yachid betanit chalom amra be'avodah. Could be, he says also an individual will say it there when he's fasting for the dream. Udlo keperush Bahag, not like the Bahag Yerushalmi. So it says Yerushalmi posek Rabbi Abba, pasuk Rabbi Abba. En lamud alav im posek Rabbi Abba bar Mamal. So he says we're not really sure if he's pasking like Rabbi Abba bar Mamal. The Amar Ba'avodah, who said in the Avodah, or Rabbi Abba, the Messiah, Rabbi Avina, or like Rabbi Abba, that it assists, it supports Rabbi Avina, the Amar Bracha Chamishit, who says that you say it in the fifth blessing. Okay. Ve'ani Omer, the Mistaber the Gasina Rabbi Abba bar Mamal. So it says, I think that the proper text is to say this, Rabbi. The Lo Hava Shabik Talmuda Rabbi Avina Shehu Ika Hamemra. The Talmud wouldn't have abandoned, right, this rabbi who's very prominent. Ve'omar Rabbi Abba, and to say this rabbi, instead to say this rabbi. Shelo haya ela Messiah. He was just assisting this whole thing. Rosh Machriya Sheyushami posek Rabbi Abba mar Mamal. So it seems to be, says that the Rosh paskins like this rabbi, according to Yerushalmi. The Amar Ba'avodah, that he says to say in Avodah. V'zeu shechatav Rabbeinu, and that's what Rabbeinu said. The Torah. Omasi katam keman the Amar Ba'avodah. The conclusion is, right, we say in the Avodah, which is the fifth blessing. So therefore, he says, if the individual, right, is fasting on Shabbat, because of the bad dream, he's going to say it in the fifth blessing. That's what he's going to say, the Anenu. Oh boy. Okay, that's very interesting. Wow. Okay, this goes the whole chapter, this Beit Yosef. So let's move on. We have a pretty decent chance to finish it. The whole chapter here. Not really that long. All right, let's see what we can do. So it says like this, Rabbeinu, מה שכתב רבנו, שפכם דאיקפלו קצת בטוב לקלו באלוקי נסור. So it says the two, right? Since in machloket, it's good to put it in Elokai Netzor, which is like a safer place to put it, since we're not really sure where it's supposed to go. Right? So he says, Hem divrei atzmo, he says that's his own idea. שאומר לכיוון דבהג בירושלמי פליגי, so since, because he says like this, since Bahagan, Yerushalmi argue that the divrei maskanot Yerushalmi omra be'avodah, because according to Yerushalmi, he's supposed to say in the avodah. הלכות גדולות, עודת הלכות גדולות, אומרו באלוקי נסור. But according to Bahag, he's supposed to say it in אלוקי נסור. לעשות כדברי הלכות גדולות מכדברי ירושלמי. So he says, טוב לעשות, it's good to do like the Bahag, more than Yerushalmi, שלא להפסיק בתפילת, that we shouldn't make an interruption, right, in the prayers. משום בדברי ההג יש שני פירושים. So it's because also, according to this rabbi, there's two different ways of interpreting this. One is to include it in Elokei Nesor, or שקובע ברכה לעצמו, to make a blessing by itself. דייק רבנו לכתוב טוב לחללו באלוקי נסור. So therefore, right, Rabbeinu deduced to write it's good that it's good to write say it in Elokei Nesor. לומר שלא יקבע ברכה, so meaning what, you shouldn't make a blessing by itself לעצמו, אלא כולו באלוקי נסור, rather just to include it with אלוקי נסור, בלא חתימה, without sealing it. לכן כתב גם כן בסימן תקס"ח. He also writes this in this chapter as well, which is 568. ולא נהרה לדברי האומרים שיכול לאמרו בחתימה. He doesn't agree, right, with the ones who say you can say it, and seal it as well, to make a separate blessing, in other words. Okay. Let's move on. So it says, regarding what the Rosh said, that there is a mistake over here, scribe's error. Because he says the reason is because if the text would be that we say in the fourth blessing, that means we're going to say Anenu on the fourth blessing. But according to Rabbi Abba, who's coming apparently to help, but to assist here, how did he say, what do we find in every place? That you've said in the fourth blessing. Says, what kind of thing is that, right? Where do we find another case where we say Anenu in the fourth blessing? The truth is, it's not, it's between Goel and Rofeh. So, what kind of thing you're saying by saying it's a fourth blessing? Omra. So therefore he wrote the Yesh Ligros Rabbi Avina Omer B'Chamishit. Therefore he says the proper text would be to say that Rabbi Avina said, you say in the fifth blessing, Klomar Shomar Anenu Achar Kedushat Hayom. So what does that mean? You say Anenu after the mention of the occasion. V'ata Rabbi Abba Liten Tam. So Rabbi Abba comes to give a reason. Lama Omra Achar Kedushat Hayom. Why do you say after the occasion? Why not before? Mishum de Kedushat Hayom leolam hi k'berevit. Because always the occasion is said in the fourth blessing. You cannot change that, right? That's like fixed. So it says, but in my eyes, it's difficult, to change the text of the books. In other words, he wants to leave it original. לכן נראה לפרש דרבי אבא על דרבי אבינה the Amar Rabbi. So he says, therefore, it seems better to explain like this, right? That Rabbi Avina said, you say in the fourth blessing, Ata le'apuke meman de Amar. He's coming to exclude the opinion that says, Ba'avodah, to say it in the Avodah, which is the sixth blessing. And the Amar be'odah, and he refuses to say in the Hodah, which is the sixth blessing. So this rabbi comes to assist and say, but wait a second, right? What do we find usually? All right, it's in the fourth blessing. So he says all the middle blessings he calls them fourth blessing. Because in Rosh Chodesh you only have one middle blessing, right? That's all you got. He's talking about the Musaf. So this is what he means to say, right? What do we usually find in every place? He says Anenu in the middle of the prayer, and not in the Thanksgiving. And not in the Avodah, right, which is the fifth blessing. So it says, therefore, he doesn't say not there, not here. He says in the fourth blessing. Aha. Okay. Are you now thoroughly confused from all the stuff that I read? If you're not, I'll confuse you in the end. By the way, I'll succeed to confuse you. Believe me, I'll have you all confused by the end. Okay. You know what they say, right? The Chazal. They say, why do they call it Talmud Bavli? You know, because obviously the simple thing is it was in Bavel. But they say, the word Bavel in Hebrew means bilbul, like mixed up. In other words, when you learn Talmud Bavli, you get all mixed up. That's what happens. Okay, so don't feel bad. You're getting mixed up because you're supposed to be mixed up when you learn this stuff. That's the whole point. Don't feel dejected. Okay, so so it says, furthermore, there is to say that this is what Rabbi Avina said, so it says, right, you shouldn't include it from the last blessings, right, from those three last ones. So it says, like the ones who say that you include in the Thanksgiving, or in the right in the Avodah, which is the fifth blessing. Rather, what we do is we say it as a blessing by itself. And then when we talk about the one which is by itself, we call that the fourth one, right? That's the general name that we give it. So what is he trying to tell you? That we don't put it in the last three, right? So comes this rabbi to assist. It says like this, right? What do we find usually in every place? He says Anenu in the middle blessing, right? In the fourth blessing. What does that mean, the fourth blessing? That he doesn't put it in the final ones, right? The final three. That's what he means to say. Rather, what he does is he makes it into a separate blessing altogether. Afkan Omra here also, right? He says it as a separate blessing. So he says he doesn't include it in a different blessing. The old Yesh Tomar, there is to say, we're almost done, guys. We're almost there. The old Yesh Tomar, the Rabbi Avina, Amar Omra Bracha Ravit. So there also we can say like this, right? The Rabbi Avina said, we say in the fourth blessing, Komar Shomer Anenu Bracha Ravit, that he says Anenu, the fourth blessing, Dainu Kolem Kedushat Hayom. What does that mean? Before the event of the day, right? The occasion of the day. Ve'ata Rabbi Abba, so comes Rabbi Abba and says, to argue with him, Velomar she'eno omer anenu ela le'achar kedushat hayom. He says, no, we say it after the occasion of the day, not before. Says, because what do we find in every place, right? But we eat, right? We do it in the fourth. Meaning to say that in every place, Omer Anenu, Achar Bracha Rabit, that we say Anenu, right? Usually after the fourth blessing. Shenimtzet Brachat Anenu Chamishit. So it says, because we find that Anenu is the fifth blessing, right? That's how it comes out. Share brachat goel rebi'it. He says, because you know why? Because he says the one of the redemption is fourth blessing, emsayot of the middle blessings. Ve'achareya omer anenu, and then afterwards it says anenu. Avkan omer anenu. Here also it says anenu achar bracha rabit after the fourth blessing. Shehi kedushat hayom, which is the event of the day. Ve'afagav b'chol makom. So it's even though in every place omer. He says Anenu b'Rebi'it. He says Anenu the fourth blessing, the Emsayot of the middle blessings. Hachad deleka ela bracha echad. But here on Shabbat, since it's only one blessing there, Be'emsa in the middle. Manina Rebi'it letchila tefillah. So now we counted the fourth as from the beginning of the prayer. Wow, there's some heavy duty stuff going on here. Whoa. Okay, so. So he says the language really implies like this kind of interpretation. Rabbi Avina amar bracha rabbi'it, Rabbi Abba amar bracha rabbi'it. So they both said, right, the fourth blessing. That's what they meant to say, these two rabbis. But Talmud they appreciate, and the reason is because what we said, the Rabbi Avina, so shesover sheomra samuch leshalosh rishonot, because right. With Rabbi Avina, that says holds right. They says in the he says it next to the three blessings after the three blessings, first three blessings. Shayach lomar bracha rabbi'it below bet. So then it's relevant to say the fourth blessing right without a bet. Shei atzma rabbi'it because it's the fourth itself. According to Rabbi Abba, who says, that you say it after the fourth blessing, so then, right, then it's relevant to say in the fourth blessing, bet with a bet. Meaning to say after the fourth blessing. So that's the way I want to preserve the text of the books, he says. Oh, wow. Ooh. Okay, well, that was quite a mouthful, I must tell you. Let's go to Shulchan Aruch. We just did like the whole chapter there almost, you know? But we finished everything there. Okay. So let's do Shulchan Aruch bet. Very short, actually, you know? Bet Yosef is so long, Shulchan Aruch is so short. So it says over here, Yafet ta'anit lavatel chalom ra. Oh, so it says, right, that what's the best remedy, you know, to nullify the bad dream? To fast, right, that day. Right? So it's like, you know, you burn it up, you know, you burn it up. You can, the bad decree, whatever. Just like fire burns, you know, through flax, whatever, God knows. So says Rama, so says Rama, it has to be that direct day, right? After the night of the dream. Don't wait like, you know, 2 days after, you know, and say, oh, I'll do it now. No, it's not what you needed. You need it now. Right? When you woke up, that day you got to fast in order to annul the decree. So says Rama that even on Shabbat we do it. Right? And he says, look later on in the laws of Shabbat, right? It explains over there exactly more detail, you know, what to do on Shabbat, how we right, practically carry it out, such a thing like this, to fast on Shabbat, you know. So the truth is, that I've seen, in the Yalkut Yosef, he writes about this halacha, and he approaches it like a little bit differently, meaning to say that, tells you, right, pretty much like almost nobody, I don't know, nobody really, most people don't fast on Shabbat. You know, so the truth is, even nowadays, if you really want to, you could. But there are other ways to handle it, this issue. And the truth is, over there in Laws of Shabbat, he really gets into it like deeper, this issue. So, a person has several options how to handle that. You really want to fast on Shabbat? Do you really want to do that? And then fast another day on a weekday, right? To make it up again. That's going to be quite a week for you, right? To that week. It's going to be quite an occasion there. It's going to be for you to fast twice, once on Shabbat, once on a weekday, to make that one up, and all kinds of stuff like that. So if I remember correctly, by the way, over there in Laws of Shabbat, it tells you, right, practically speaking, you should only do this for certain specific dreams, not just any dream. So what are we talking about? What specific dreams are we talking about? So it says there, if I remember correctly, that these are the dreams which are mentioned in the Talmud, that they're supposed to be like a bad omen. Like it's a bad sign to have dreams like this, So if you see one of those dreams, that are described in the Talmud, there's like 3 of them, whatever it is. So then you really, should consider fasting even on Shabbat. Because, that shows, right, that it's a serious matter. The fact that this happened to you. So you got to watch out, with those things. Yeah. Maybe I'll tell you guys a nice story over here, just to lighten up the conversation a little bit. Okay, so I'll tell you something really amazing. That one time, right, my rabbi, Maran Shalom, who was such a great scholar, he knew all kinds of things, stories and all kinds of historical things. Nobody else knows all these things, that the rabbi knew. Incredible, scholar, incredible, the amount of books that he knew. So he told us a very fascinating story, kind of scary too, whatever. But anyway, right, what happened was like this. So we're talking here about the time of the Ben Ish Chai, which was about 100 years ago, in Baghdad, right, in Iraq. Okay, so what happened was, right, that there was him, the Ben Ish Chai, and there was also his rabbi, These were like the leading rabbis of that generation. So who was his rabbi? Rabbi Ovadia Somech, right? Who's also like a big chacham, There's also a book that he wrote that, we use very commonly. It's very, very, very widely read. This book about kashrut, about all kinds of things like that. So anyway, right, Rabbi Ovadia Somech, apparently, right, they say that he woke up, and he had a dream. So what did they tell him in the dream? They told him, he said, you do you know who you are, right? You're the Gilgul, you are the you have the same neshama, right, as the king Ahaz, right? So reincarnation, right? You are the reincarnation of Ahaz. And so who was this guy Ahaz? And this guy was one of the most wicked kings, in the First Temple era. He was the father of Chizkiyahu, who was a tzaddik. Anyway, right, this guy was a big Rasha, and it tells him in the dream, that you are a reincarnation of that wicked king. So you know what he did, right? He said, he said this pasuk, right? Chalamot shavi daberu, right? So what does this pasuk mean? He said, dreams are usually like, they're usually, they're nonsense. You know what I mean? Like, 80%, 90% of a dream is usually nonsense. So, so he said, you know what? I'm going to go back to sleep, like forget about this. So he tried to disregard it, So what happened was that he fell back asleep, and he dreamt the same thing again, right? Second time. And again, right, he brushed it off, right? He brushed it off second time, went back to sleep again, and then he dreamt it the third time. Right? So same thing, right? The carbon copy of the first two. So so what happened? He was really in shock, Then he realized, right, that this was like something serious. It wasn't just some kind of a fluke, one of those fluky dreams. Not like that. Because they say in the Talmud, if it happens three times, that shows that it's something serious there, going on. If you dreamt the same thing three times, and so what happened, right? He started to worry a little bit about this, you know what I mean? He gets up in the morning, and he goes to the rabbis, and asks around, to get some advice from them. He's not really sure what to do. You know what I mean? So guess who he went to, right? He went to the Ben Ish Chai, Now the Ben Ish Chai, the interesting thing is, that he was his Talmid. You know what I mean? Right? We call him the Ben Ish Chai, but really his name was Rabbi Yosef Chaim, right? From Baghdad, Why they call him the Ben Ish Chai? Because his book was called Ben Ish Chai. It's a whole story about that, by the way. I'm not going to get into that, right? It's a different story, but it's a whole discussion about that as well. But anyway, right? So what happened was that the Ben Ish Chai, even though he was the Talmid of Rabbi Ovadia Somech, but when it comes to Kabbalah, they say, he was bigger than him. He knew Kabbalah better. So what happened was that, he was exceptionally gifted in Kabbalah, the Ben Ish Chai. Some people have a knack for it, So anyway, right? So Ben Ish Chai told him, he says, tell me what happened, right? What was your dream? Like Yosef HaTzadik, right? Comes, to the butler and the baker. Yeah, what did you dream? Tell me, please. What did you dream? So what do you call it? His name was also Yosef, right? Rabbi Yosef Chaim. He was also Yosef. So what happened was, right, that he told him, that they told him in a dream that he's a reincarnation of Ahaz. Quite a shocking discovery there. So right, so Ben Ish Chai tells him, he says, oh, you dreamt it three times, huh? Oh, I see. So he says, then it's probably true. So tells him, he says, okay, he says, what? He says, I'm going to give you a program, Can you imagine? He made a program for him, Kabbalistic program, how to make a tikkun on the neshama of Achaz, who was a big Rasha, as we said. He caused the Jewish people to sin greatly. A very wicked king, So can you imagine? He gave him like a tikkun program to fix up the neshama of Achaz. The Ben Ish Chai, he was such a wise man, Can you imagine something like this? So this is what happened, and they fixed it up. So you see, right, this is what happens. You see, it says in Zohar Kadosh that Hashem brings, these wicked people, back to Gilgul, reincarnation, to rectify their sins. This happens all the time. That's what we're here for, to rectify our old lifetimes. That's the whole point. That's why we come back, So he helped them to rectify, the neshama of Achaz. Can you imagine something like this? Shem Yirachem. Okay, so that's one thing, Another thing, by the way, which is related to this a little bit. I'll tell you guys, since we're on the topic of dreams, right? There's another, story that Maran told us. My rabbi also. My rabbi, was incredible. The things that he told us were, simply incredible. So what happened was, right, that he said one time, he went to sleep at night, Maran himself, So he has a dream, and guess who comes to him in the dream? You'll never guess who it was. Right? So who was it? Right? He said it was the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai came to him in a dream. So again, right, Maran, the first time, second time he disregarded it. He said, it's just nonsense. Right? Dreams are nonsense. But then once he dreamt it three times, it came back to him get three times, third time. So then he realized it was real. The Ben Ish Chai was trying to talk to it, communicate with him. So okay, so it's interesting, right? So they say, that Ben Ish Chai came and he told them, he told them a couple of things. I don't know if he told us the whole story about everything here. Ben Ish Chai told him, maybe there was some secrets over there also. I don't know, but anyway, this is the stuff that he revealed to us. I don't know about the stuff they didn't reveal, but he said, that what do you call it? The Ben Ish Chai asked him a couple of questions. He said, number one, he asked him, he says, can you imagine? He confronted him, confronted. He told him, he says, why do you always argue with me? Like all the psak halacha, the piskei halacha that I made, you argue with everything I do. You know what I mean? So, the truth is, right, that the rabbi has a lot of machloket with the Ben Ish Chai, and not only that, but the book that he wrote, Halichot Olam, which is like 8 volumes, it's all about that topic, about machloket that he has with Ben Ish Chai. Can you imagine? He write 8 volumes about that, and there's even more, by the way, in other books. But anyway, right? That's the first question that he asked him, and then he told us, that he took his book Yebi Omer, the rabbi's great book, whatever. He looked in there and he told him, he says, oh, that's a nice book. He says, oh, Chazak Baruch, that's a nice, he says, you did a good job here. So there are some things like this, whatever. It was a very interesting thing. But anyway, right? So these things do occur, Dreams are still around, but
Rabbi, why do you find it humorous? I mean, I get it why, but
well,
obviously you believe
what
it.
it is. You got to know the context, then you'll understand why it's so humorous.
No, but you believe in it, though. I mean,
well,
obviously you believe it.
I'm not telling you, children's stories.
Right, but
I'm not here to tell you that.
The way you're giggling.
God bless you. So anyway, right? That's so dreams are still around. We still have a lot of stuff going on. But the truth is, we have to know one thing. That it really depends on the level of the person. The more holy a person is, the more his dreams are true.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about mine. I have
but a person who's not really so holy, just a regular dude, regular guy, Joe Schmo, right? Something like that, right? So his dreams are mostly nonsense, like then so don't take them too seriously. Take them with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? We don't need to hear your dreams, David. We don't have to hear about them.
I wanted to say, I actually wanted to say that you touched up on this subject a few years ago.
Okay.
You were living in Israel at the time, and you sent out, a bunch of messages. And I actually, dream a lot, more than I should.
I see.
And I don't find them to be nonsense. I mean, maybe the content of the dreams are not so serious, but every time I have one, that's negative, it usually comes to fruition, like in one form or another.
I believe it, David. I believe what you say. I don't make light of it.
Right. No, I'm not accusing you of that. I'm saying that
actually I think you may be on the spot.
Yeah, I believe
there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. I'm not going to get into it now because it's a personal issue, but
yeah, I think what I'm saying is that I think that people have psychic powers to an extent.
Yes, especially some people. They have more than others.
Yeah, and actually, the scary part about like my dreams or nightmares, if you will, when I have them, and I wake up,
yes,
I know that they're going to they're going to be, each one of my negative dreams, it's going to have its interpretation during the day.
Right, right.
Or a couple of the.
I'll tell you
There's
guys,
nothing I can do.
something interesting about what you're saying.
Yeah,
There's a couple
and
of things
there's
that said,
basically nothing I can do to reverse it.
there's
It's
a
gonna
couple of
happen.
things that it says in the Talmud, about this. Usually, right, we say Chalamot shari b'daberu. Most dreams are nonsense, but there are certain signs that the dream is very serious. Right, as we just mentioned yesterday, one of them is that it disturbs you.
Yeah,
Like you're shaken up by it.
yeah.
That's one thing. Number two, it happens like the dream. You see it right before you wake up in the morning.
Right, exactly.
That shows that it's more real.
Yeah.
Number three, you see it like repeatedly, like 3 times.
Yep.
So when that happens, you have to take it more seriously.
Yeah.
There's also
then again, I know people that tell me that they don't dream at all.
Right. You know what it is? Some people just forget them. They don't remember them.
Yeah.
Everybody dreams, but not everybody remembers the dreams.
I see.
Okay, guys. Anyway, thanks for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch.
Sweet dreams.
So we'll see you, Bezat Hashem. Yeah, sweet dreams. Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. So we'll see you, Bezat Hashem, next week on Sunday. Shabbat Shalom.
Rabbi, stay with me. Yeah, do me a favor. Can you stay with me?
Call me, David. Call me on the phone.
Oh, okay. You got it.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
You too. All the best.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
God bless.